Israel-Gaza-Iran War News Live Update. An icy retaliation. Iranian baiting of Israel on October 7. Boaz Ganner, president of Reichman University, told Ma'ariv that the focus should have been on Hezbollah rather than Hamas, the tactical threat to Israel. Professor Boaz Ganner, president of Reichman University and founder of the International Institute for Counterterrorism, had an in-depth discussion with Ma'ariv. The role of Iran in the Israel-Hamas conflict and other recent events in the Middle East were among the topics we covered. Among the first academics to study terrorism, Professor Ganner is now a full-time professor and a former dean of the Lauder Institute for International Affairs. Unlike many of his academic and security-related pals, Professor Ganner thinks the war initiative is a bad idea. Iranians were behind the Israel-Hamas war, in every way, he said. The first reason is a reason for retribution. That's one of three reasons, he said. The Iranians are quick to claim vengeance, and they certainly have cause for it: the deaths of scientists, the destruction of bases and other infrastructure, cyber attacks, and so on. The Iranians wanted the world's attention to divert from Iran to another area, Professor Ganner explains, citing strategic timing as the second reason. They are on the verge of acquiring nuclear weapons for military use, and it would serve them best if everyone else was preoccupied with other matters. Thirdly, and most importantly, there was concern that normalizing relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel might pave the way for a regional military alliance to oppose Iran. They had hoped to avoid this strategic danger to Iran, and it has become their worst nightmare. They arrived to the conclusion that Israel should be brought into the conflict and not into another operation in Gaza, Professor Ganner said, adding that he felt the Iranians had planned their actions well. They did, however, see two prerequisites for this war: first, that it be arduous and lengthy but ultimately contained, and second, that there be no obvious Iranian fingerprint on it. He went on to say that they had a purpose in selecting the Palestinians as their proxy because, despite being a weaker arm, it was still capable of causing significant harm to Israel. Furthermore, they constructed a denial mechanism beforehand to separate themselves from the incident. His main point was that Iran's denial of involvement in the attack was a calculated move. This system started with Ismail Haniyeh's announcement after the massacre, where he said that Hezbollah and Iran were not involved. "We didn't tell them, and we didn't tell them, so we don't expect them to be involved." Afterwards, in Friday's sermon, Nasrallah reiterated the same point, saying that neither Iran nor Hamas had notified them. Later on, Khamenei said that Hamas had not notified them and that they had no role in this. Israel fell for Iran's trap. Just as we responded, Professor Ganner explained, explaining that the Iranians had anticipated Israel's reaction. Nothing we did caught them off guard. Their hope was that it would turn into a protracted war of attrition, so they anticipated our response to be the Air Force entering Gaza. Israel should have dealt with Hezbollah rather than Hamas, the strategic threat, he says, adding that Israel should have changed its strategy. Imagine yourself in a scenario where you are strolling down the street and a criminal group assaults you, Professor Ganner said, drawing parallels to a street fight. No amount of violence against the thug will dissuade the powerful actors, or the gang boss. Conversely, you might be able to discourage the other powerful players by attacking one of them. Instead of dealing with the larger criminals in the area, Israel has chosen to focus on punishing the one who insulted it. Anybody engaged in counterterrorism efforts or formulating policies regarding national security should take Professor Boaz Ganner's remarks to heart. His perspective is all-encompassing, and it calls for fresh focus on the Middle East crisis and the measures that are essential to guarantee Israel's safety.